All right, everybody, welcome to the Rooted Conversations podcast. Today, my guest is Valerie Rubin. Valerie and I were trying to figure out the last time we met. It's been years ago. Her podcast is the Anxiety Podcast Recovery, or excuse me, the Anxiety Recovery Podcast, and I'll link to that. And I was just kind of reflecting on that podcast, and I remember, if I'm correct, at that time, to show how much things can shift in a short period of time, I believe that trauma had to do with only people who were in the military were in bad accidents, and I was still in my fix and figure out and force mode when it came to healing anxiety. I thought it was due to nutritional deficiencies.
hmm
And I laugh because so much has changed, and also to demonstrate that it is okay to change our mind and change what we think, and that's what growth is. So,
hmm
Valerie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on, Mitch. And yeah, like I totally hear where you're coming from. A lot of people can go down that route, like health-wise, and be like, oh, it's these toxins. Oh, it's because I have a parasite. It's because of this nutritional deficiency. And while those things may not make your mental health better, but it's not typically a root cause. Like 99% of the time, it's trauma or our environment, or most likely a combination of both. Because I also, fun fact, before I started my career in psychology, I started a certification in health coaching. And then I decided to pivot into hypnotherapy and then somatic therapy and all the things. So I understand where you're coming from. I find that if we go down that route of just focusing on the physical health things or the nutritional deficiencies that we might have, it almost gives us unconsciously a form of control versus our trauma that we've experienced as children or CPTSD can look harder to quote unquote treat or resolve.
Hmm. Yeah, and that when you say that, I agree with that. And it's kind of like I just had a question about, is it top down or is it bottom up? And what I've learned, I used to think there was a war between the two and that it's all somatic and, the brain is just force and overriding. But if we don't work with our beliefs, then we're disconnecting from the body. If we don't work
hmm
with our body and we're only working with the mind, then we're disconnecting from the body. And so much of this work is being in relationship with, and it's really easy to go into the force, fix it, figure out, do mentality, because that's what society rewards, and that's what looks sexy. And until you do this work, and you start to see more nuance, and we have more choice, and I think we need both of those worlds to heal.
I agree, and right, like it's not just somatics, right? Or it's not just top down. Like we need a combination of both. Like trauma can affect people differently, but like many ways that trauma can show up is our in our beliefs and in the sensations in our bodies and what's happening somatically. So it's both and like beliefs and catastrophic thinking and rumination, all of these can also be protector parts. And it's like when we've experienced trauma as a child, we don't have that logical part of our mind online yet. So we then internalize everything that our parents are doing or not doing and starting to believe, well, there's something wrong with me. I'm not good enough. XYZ is better than me because
Mhm.
my parent or parents aren't doing XYZ because we don't know any other way other than to blame ourselves. And that could be like self blame is also a big protector part in our future relationships. And
Mhm.
it can carry into adulthood if we don't work on that protector part as well.
Yeah, and what I think about when you say that is, having a belief that says, "Dude, this isn't safe, but I'm gonna shake until I feel it." So we learn something about somatic and how we need to feel and move through. But if we if we discard or we don't, or we're not aware of the beliefs, it's easy to, go into that shame part and shame ourselves because we're. And I think for me, that feels grosser, is what I'm noticing, is that disconnection. But
Mm-hmm.
it makes sense. It's very intelligent or self-preserving, I believe, that I hear this in NARM, where it's like talking about the environment. And if I have environmental failure as a kid, it's impossible for me to look at my parents as having failed my needs, not giving me what I need. And so we turn that back on ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Because as a child, we are completely emotionally and physically dependent on our caregivers to meet our needs. So
Mm-hmm.
when they are not meeting our needs, we don't stop loving ourselves or stop loving them. We just begin to start hating ourselves as a result. We then start to create protector parts like self blame, fantasy thinking of if my parent could just go to therapy, if they were to change, if they were to just stop working and be home with me, then everything would be great. Or one that I remember vividly, like working within somatic therapy, and one distortion that I would use as a child was I remember being 3 years old and, my aunt was married at the time and my parents' marriage was completely dysfunctional and chaotic. And I remember being 3 years old, looking at my aunt and thinking in my head, it's all going to be okay when I get married and I grow up. So that's like an example of fantasy thinking, rumination. This is like a protector part that stops us when our body believes this is going to be too much, this is going to be overwhelming. Like trauma is defined as too much, too fast, too overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
So then we create this protector part where we're all up in our heads and then we completely disconnect from our body. And
Mm-hmm.
so then we're catastrophizing, ruminating, analyzing every situation, analyzing everything that's wrong with us, analyzing everything that's wrong with situations or people around us. We're overthinking to stop ourselves from actually feeling what's happening in our body. And then cognitive dissonance, when our parent might be unpredictable or inconsistent. This is really common if your parent or parents were narcissistic, maybe an alcoholic, or just unpredictable or inconsistent,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like we can have parents that are trying their best, but it's like, one day they're meeting all your needs, they're being great to you when they're sober, or great to you when their ex-husband is out of the picture, but then when, another the next day, maybe they're cold, maybe they're distant, maybe they're harsh toward you, and then it creates this cognitive dissonance of, but they have been so good to me, or like they've been so good to me. So how could they be this type of person? How could they be this type of parent? And in adulthood, this is what can keep you in toxic relationships is these protector parts that don't allow you to see the red flags. They don't allow you to see the whole picture because that would break a child's psyche if they learned my parent or parents cannot meet my needs.
Mm-hmm.
Because
And
a
so,
3 year old can't just leave their parent. So when we're telling people or clients, you just need to leave your toxic husband, if they have an unhealed abandonment wound, what's going to start happening is they're going to block out those red flags. They're going to experience cognitive dissonance because if the pain of the abandonment is bigger than the pain of staying in this relationship, this emotion of the pain of abandonment wins every single time.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's it's saying, it's recognizing we have a need, and that
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like we're connecting need to shame. And so every time we have a need, I'm going to shame myself because I can't have both. And I can't see that the environment is not giving me what I want. That would be too much. And then so as adults, we take these patterns into our relationship and we say, oh man, this feels, maybe I've built capacity and I've built awareness and I can feel into, this environment is not for me. But because that's connected to a need, if we haven't healed that wound, we're going to go back into our patterns. We're going to be perfect. We're going to armor up. We're going to do the hard thing. We're going to find a way to shame and blame ourselves instead of trusting the innate intelligence that is coming through.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up shame and then needs because people in these types of environments, they start to learn if their parent was like, maybe they were working a few jobs to keep food on the table. Maybe they were just, right, like I said, alcoholics, narcissistic, or just emotionally unavailable, or just inconsistent in meeting your needs. The child then learns my needs are too much. So then in adulthood, you might have extreme anxiety around even sharing your needs or sharing that you even experience fear or anxiety around sharing your emotions with others, even if they're safe, because you learned I need to suppress my needs to be safe. I need to silence this need. And so a lot of clients come to me and they, instead of realizing this environment is unsafe, they blame themselves for their triggers and reactions. When in reality, your reactions and triggers are completely valid. It's just you haven't learned that my needs are okay, that my needs even matter in the first place.
Absolutely. And I'm just learning about all this stuff, learning about a little bit about attachment. Um,
Hmm.
that's about the extent of my knowledge right there, that what we talked about. And,
Hmm.
I guess I'm curious. You mentioned going from health coach and then into more of like what sounds like the mental health and healing space. Like, tell us a little bit about your background and your journey. What can you share about that?
Yeah, that's such a great question, Mitch. So I started out, I was doing all the right things. I was seeing a talk therapist for 5 years. I was working out every day. I was doing yoga. I was meditating every day. I even went on medication. Nothing helped the anxiety that I was experiencing. Until I started to work with the body and do somatic work and hypnotherapy. And I struggled before being introduced to those modalities. The anxiety was so bad, it started to develop into cystic acne all over my face. It started to show up as chronic headaches, neck pain, back pain, shoulder pain, IBS. Even like different doctors were telling me that I had symptoms of fibromyalgia in my early 20s. And I was just so frustrated, feeling like I'm in my early 20s. I shouldn't feel this way. I'm young. Why do I feel like I'm literally living in the body of a 9-year-old woman? And then as I started incorporating hypnotherapy and somatic work, the chronic pain and the health symptoms went away within 6 months. And, family relationships started getting better. I wasn't as triggered. I started to become repulsed by emotionally unavailable partners. I started to be able to choose healthier friendships. I was able to step into my purpose. I was able to just have so much more capacity because I wasn't in those type of health issues. And even just each day, if I go and strength train, I just thank my body for how much I'm able to do because in that stretch of time when I was battling these health issues that had no medical cause, I thought I'd be in a wheelchair at this age. I thought I was never going to get better. I thought that I was just stuck in this body. And so I couldn't even strength train or work out. All I could do was yoga, like very gentle yoga, because everything else would inflame my muscles and my body. And so every time I go to the gym now, I'm like, wow, thank you, body, for moving with ease. Thank you, body, for the ability to walk and move and Yeah, that's a little bit about my story. And then I started to get trained as a hypnotherapist and then got trained in somatic therapy like IFS, brain spotting. And then I learned all about nervous system regulation and rewiring the body, rewiring the mind. And, our attachment styles are a reflection of our nervous system state and how we learn to relate with our caregivers. So, for example, if you have an anxious attachment, you are chronically anxious. So, a lot of people will come to me and they're concerned about their anxious attachment and they look at it as, oh, my romantic relationships are being harmed or they're suffering because of my anxious attachment. But your anxious attachment style is impacting every single area of your life. We could have different attachments, like we could be secure in our friendships, anxious in our romantic lives, and then like avoidant with our business or finances. Or we could just be anxious across all three, right? And so it's not just a one-off issue. If you're having attachment issues, I guarantee you are also having money issues. So this is all ways that it shows up. You can't just look at your attachment style from the lens of, I want healthier romantic partners. It's also about your nervous system state. If you're chronically anxious, you've learned to relate to the world and to your relationships in an anxious way. And
Mm,
then if you are more avoidant leaning or avoidantly attached, this means that your needs were chronically dismissed, unmet, or you were neglected. So you learned I can't voice my needs, so instead we're going to shut down. We're going to avoid conflict. We're going to avoid our feelings because we never learned how to attune. And they also have a fear of abandonment. And then with anxious attachment, they also have fear of abandonment. And with anxiously attached people, what they end up doing is they are hyper available and hyper attuned to other. So they learned my needs are inconsistently met. So I am chronically anxious. I'm hyper vigilant. I'm someone who can scan the room. I know exactly who's walking down the stairs by their energy, right? That's hypervigilance,
mhm.
waiting for the shoe to drop, jealousy, codependency. That a lot of the times my clients describe it as if my partner had a bad day, now I'm having a bad day. If my partner's safe, I'm safe. And so this is a lot of the work that I do is helping people realize, hey, your attachment style is not your identity. This is a beginning start. Your attachment style is not fixed. It is something that we can work on. No matter what attachment label, attachment style you are, we can all move toward a secure way of being and more securely attached relationships.
Wow. Thank you for sharing all that. First, I just want to go back to uh, doing all the right things, and nothing
Hmm.
seems to work. I mean,
Hmm.
that's myself. I was
Hmm.
biohacking and looking for the perfect diet, and ultimately trying to control what didn't feel safe, and that was everything. And
Hmm.
we feel like if I can check the boxes, cross all the things off the list, and I do that every single day, then I'll be perfect, and nothing bad will ever happen to me.
Yeah.
And then, but we keep going down this rabbit hole. And so many of the clients that I'm working with as well, where it's just, I've done this for so long, the symptoms just get worse. Maybe there's a period of time where there's a placebo effect and we've got a new thing and we feel good, we feel secure, safe for a week or two. And then we go right back into that shame blame cycle. And we're looking for the next thing. So if that sounds
Hmm.
like you, you're in the right place. And both Valerie and I both went through this process of exhausting the health world. But the health world will chew you up and spit you out if you don't learn about the nervous system, about regulation, about attachment, because we're just going to keep doing and pushing harder, not paying attention to our body and looking for the answers out here. And that's like
Yes.
chasing your own tail. It's exhausting.
Yes, and that is a great point that I want to circle back to. We're looking externally, right? We're looking externally for the answers to our health problems. We're looking to our partner to soothe us. We're looking for the amount of our 100 grand figure or six-figure year to make us feel safe and secure and stable, right? Because an anxious attachment learns I don't have safety internally. The only way I can get it is externally, and like you're saying, controlling the external. And so a lot of clients come to me because they're also chronically struggling with anxiety in their relationships. Like a client came to me struggling with anxiety because she was dating a partner for a few years, and she was like, I'm so anxious, all my friends are getting married, all my friends are having babies, and I'm just waiting for him to step up and marry me, and then I'm going to feel safe.
Hmm.
And what did that do? All that did is put strain on the relationship, put stress on her and her partner,
Yeah.
because we're trying to control the external because that's all we've learned. People
Yeah.
also shame people for trying to control. But if you've never had internal safety, of course we're going to try and cultivate that externally. Like, of course we're going to do that. So, not shaming yourself for also experiencing that. And going back to the thought of you're doing all the right things, a lot of people are just unaware that trauma is physiological, meaning it's stored in our body.
Hmm.
So we can know logically, hey, my partner is on a business trip, or, I'm going to be okay whether or not my partner marries me. But try telling that to your body when he goes on a business trip and you're freaking out inside, thinking he's going to find another woman who's more interesting, more smart, prettier, all the stories that your mind is telling you to reaffirm this belief that you're not good enough. So, of course, you're going to feel anxious. Of course, you're going to feel on edge. And so, when we put that back on ourselves, of pointing back to healing our anxious attachment from the root of it, when we learn, hey, this is physiological, no amount of insight, no amount of talking about our anxiety or trauma is going to stop a panic attack. You
Hmm.
can know all the insight in the world and know why you do this, this, and this, but your nervous system still thinks you're being chased by a tiger. And
Yep.
so, with the work I do with clients, is we work with the body sensations and we work with the emotions that are stored in the body, because your anxious attachment style is just a symptom of the dysregulation in your body. Your
Hmm.
thoughts are a symptom of your fight or flight state. When we're anxious, when our nervous system is in that fight or flight response, we're going to go to the worst case scenarios. We're going to catastrophize. We're going to ruminate. And so when we work with the body, clients will tell me, I finally feel a sense of relief in my body. I finally feel safe. I feel like I can surrender. I feel like I can let go. But we cannot do that until the body feels safe. And as we work with the body somatically and help the body feel safe on a physiological and somatic level, that's when the thoughts naturally begin to feel positive.
Hmm.
And that's when the trauma cycle loop ends. This is when our body tells us, I am safe now, and
Hmm.
I'm not living in the past anymore.
I think that's some place I want to take a little bookmark and go into safety, because I've got this question myself and think about it a lot. Like, how, if we've never had that, so if you're someone that's listening and you're like, oh yeah, that's me, I've never experienced safety in my life, and it takes a while to notice
Hmm.
that. I
Hmm.
didn't recognize that until a year or two into this work. But it's a question
Hmm.
that I get all the time. Where do you start with folks that have never learned safety?
Yeah, that is a lot of folks, especially with the world going on right now externally, right? And if you've had CBTSD or chronic stress or trauma, of course you would feel like the world is on fire, I'm on fire, etc. So, what we don't want to start with, and where a lot of people go wrong with these types of courses on anxiety or trauma, is people think, okay, I should do this exercise and I should feel 100% calm. But like you said, if we've been in survival mode our entire life, that's going to feel like too much of a swing to the other side. That's going to feel unsafe. So a process that I work with clients is something called titration.
Yeah.
So when we're doing somatic work, we don't want to go straight into the trauma right away necessarily, or straight into that activation or triggering thought or memory or sensation. We want to help the body feel even 1% more safe. So in the first call I have with clients is, and something you can do to start orienting yourself to safety is, we're not starting with, okay, I'm at a 10 out of 10 in anxiety. I'm going to be at a 0 out of 10 after this exercise. We want to get to, okay, what is something that's going to help me feel 1% more safe? So one of the modalities I'm trained in is brain spotting. It is a body-based psychotherapy that uses the visual field to help process different traumas through the body. And so something that we can do and start with is even just taking a body scan here for a moment, noticing, where in my body do I feel even 1% more safe, grounded, or even neutral?
It's
Maybe
always
that's
my butt.
perfect, perfect. So using that as an example, or a lot of my clients say like they feel their feet grounded on the floor. Okay, feeling your butt or feeling your feet grounded on the floor, noticing that groundedness. And then with brain spotting, I want you to look around the room, finding a spot that amplifies this neutrality, like, if even like your right pinky toe, that feels neutral, right? Looking around the room, finding a spot that amplifies this feeling of calm or groundedness. So we're pairing those sensations of calm or neutrality with the spot in our visual field. And then I'll even invite clients to, they could do this with their eyes open or closed. I invite them to keep them open, especially if you've never experienced safety or you're feeling hyper vigilant.
Mhm.
Looking at this spot. And so thinking of a time or place that you felt safe
Mm.
or at peace, or you could even imagine you were at peace, right? A lot of clients tell me, it's in my garden, or it's at the beach, or it's in the mountains, right? Or
Mhm.
even thinking of a safe person or a safe animal, right? Maybe that's your cat, maybe that's your dog, maybe that's your nephew that you babysit, right? And then it's like, okay, I'm thinking about how calm and happy and joyful I am when I'm babysitting my nephew. I feel that still in my feet, that groundedness, and I start to feel that relaxation in my chest. And then we're focusing on that, right? So we just need to be there for even 1 minute, a few minutes. And then this is what starts to help our body to feel safe and grounded. Another thing that I find really, really helpful is, if you've experienced chronic stress or trauma, what ends up happening is we have something called our vagus nerve. And our vagus nerve controls whether or not our fight or flight system gets turned on. But when we've experienced chronic stress or trauma, it stays stuck on. So this could look like chronic anxiety and hypervigilance. So what we want to do is we want to start to stimulate our vagus nerve with vagus toning exercises. And
Mhm.
these are different exercises that I teach my clients. And doing that consistently, not just when you're triggered, because you don't want to just do tools when you're triggered, because then it's like using the metaphor of, if you're just using tools when you're triggered, that's like, I'm just learning how to swim when I'm drowning. We
So let
want
me
to
let me
teach
stop you right
you,
there. When
yeah.
in the beginning, I hear you and I'm with you. I just want to specify for everybody in the beginning, what if someone is triggered all the time? Is it just,
Yeah.
let me find that 1% and just keep connecting to that? So titrating what it feels like to feel something that feels good.
Yes. So we want to start with that, right? Where in your body, even amidst that you're triggered, right? You're really fucking triggered right now by your partner, or you're really triggered by your health flare, or you're really triggered by your company and how it's going.
Yeah.
Okay, we can notice that trigger and activation in your body. That's great. And where is the spot in your body that feels 1% more safe or neutral? And focusing on that. And a big thing that is important to know something that's changed my life this year and last year is when something feels big or really triggers you, that
Yep.
is coming from a young part in the past.
Yep.
That is not coming from your true adult self who's living in the present right now. So
Right.
when we're reacting to something that looks disproportionate to what's actually happening, that's coming from a young part. So
Right.
what I teach clients is also how to unblend from these young parts so we can then start to have some separation from that. So then we are making choices and decisions from our adult self, and we're able to come back into adult self and not stay stuck in our young parts.
Love it. So in the beginning, it's not about, hey, Val, I've got all this. I love the stuff you're talking about, the anxious attachment, and my hair is on fire all the time. Like, let's work on. I know where it happened. When I have these three or four different traumas that I'd like to work on, and we feel like if I maybe we've had a lot of education. I feel like if I can work on this list of things, that eventually I'm going to be okay, right? And instead, it's like, no, wait, let's come on back. Let's work on safety. Let's learn to brain spotting. I would call that orienting.
Um, That is one way.
Okay.
It can help with orienting if we're using it in that way that I mentioned, but we can
Okay.
also use it to process those stored traumas in our body and release
Okay.
them. And I can go over that a bit
Yeah,
later.
no. Explain that. So help me with that. So I understand orienting, but the way you're describing brain spotting is orienting is one of the modalities that we can use as a resource. What else would
Yeah,
that mean
so
then?
yeah, so just like we can activate those calming, grounded states, we call that resourcing. I like to call it safe spotting. So
Okay.
the opposite So the opposite of that is looking for that activation spot. So, Mitch, like, would you feel comfortable if we just, I don't know, did something for you on the spot that maybe something is triggering or causing a bit of anxiety? I could kind of show people how it works a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah. I'll do it.
Yeah, so start by telling me something that is causing a bit of anxiety or has been triggering for you.
I mean, I think being on an interview and not doing a lot of preparation, not seeing each other in a long time, and a little bit of uncertainty of like, where's this thing going? And
Okay,
as I say that, I can feel like some heat in my body.
perfect. Where do you notice that heat?
Mm, it's kind of like coming off of me. So it's like radiating upper body,
Okay.
arms, maybe a little bit chest, upper arms.
Okay. Perfect. And then how like intense would you rate that uncertainty feeling and that heat on a scale of 0 to 10? 10 feeling the most intense.
I would say like a three, four, probably four.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So I want you to just start by noticing the heat in your body. And I want you to also take a scan of your body. And I want you to find a place in your body that feels even 1% more safe, grounded, or even neutral.
Mm, I'm gonna go with the ground, my foot on the ground.
Perfect.
Deep
Perfect.
breath as soon as I anchor into that a little bit.
Excellent.
Yep.
Excellent. So I'll just invite you to keep noticing these deep breaths, feeling that grounded feeling of your feet being on the floor. And
Hmm.
I'll just invite you to look from the left to the right and just find a spot that amplifies this feeling of groundedness.
Looking out my window.
Perfect. So what are you noticing in your body as you're looking out the window?
Expansiveness,
Hmm.
like a opening up. Um, with the grounding of the foot sensation, it was like a little bit, and it was just more when I looked out the window.
Beautiful. Yeah, I noticed your chest opening up a bit more, your spine getting a bit more straight here. So I'll just invite you to just keep looking out the window for about another 10 seconds here. Just noticing what sensations come up as you look here.
I could just notice my breath a little bit more,
Hmm.
feel a little bit more of my back body online.
Hmm.
Feel my butt in my
Perfect.
chair more. I can feel my just more in my body, my pulse.
Hmm. Perfect. So just noticing that increase in body awareness here.
Yeah.
And so at any point, we can always come back to this spot. So I'll just invite you now to just go back to that original heat when you thought about that uncertainty, thinking about being on the interview. What if
Hmm.
I haven't planned or seen this person in a while, this uncertainty? So just connecting back to that heat in your upper body here.
Yeah, it's way less. I really
Hmm.
can't find the same heat, but I do notice like a pulling in, like
Hmm.
a protective kind of posture.
Yeah, perfect. So I'll just encourage you to just notice that pulling in.
Hmm.
And I'll just invite you to look from the left to the right and find a spot that amplifies this feeling.
Felt good to look out the window again.
Hmm.
I've got some little notes here.
Mm,
It says like be you. There's one that says I believe in you, and that feels good.
okay.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
feel my stomach settle a little bit.
Mhm. Yeah. And I'll just encourage you to just find a spot that you might notice that heat more and that uncertainty more.
Oh, okay. Hmm. Maybe looking at my notes a little bit.
Okay. What do
Yeah.
you notice when you look at your notes? What are you noticing in your body here?
Contraction.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. And where do you feel that contraction?
Arms just kind of moving, wanting to move forward like this.
Perfect. So I'll just encourage you to just keep looking there at that spot and just allowing your body to do whatever it wants to do. If it wants to move forward, if it wants to contract, just allowing it to do that here. And just notice if any sensations, emotions, or memories show up when you look here. And you can feel free to share as much or as little as feels comfortable for you.
Mhm. Well, it's funny. What I'm kind of connecting is the thing that I look that I liked is telling me to be myself. That it feels like shit when I overthink or prepare or try to be perfect. And when I look at my notes, it reminds me of that,
Hmm.
like trying to perform.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just continue being aware of like what shows up when you're thinking, I have to perform.
It feels like I was gonna say shame, but it's not shame. It's more like pressure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just continue noticing that. We'll just be here for about 30 more seconds.
Yeah.
Just witness whatever shows up in your body here.
Makes my head hurt.
Mm-hmm. And just noticing that tension there.
Yeah, it's like it's tight in my chest. It's and it feels like yeah, it feels like weight, like heavy weight
Hmm.
in my body.
Yeah. Yeah. Just noticing this heaviness. You're doing a great job. You don't have to do anything here.
Hmm.
Just witnessing. And then if it feels safe, I'll just invite you to look back outside at the window. Mhm. And just notice what happens in your body as you look here.
I kind of sat back. I noticed that like less tension.
Hmm.
I took a deep breath.
Hmm.
Kind of just want to sit back a little bit.
Hmm. Beautiful. Allowing your body to just downshift and re-regulate here. So we'll just be here for about a minute or so.
Yeah, it seems like some of that activation is kind of moving now.
Hmm. Yeah, where do you notice it moving?
I feel my pulse or heart rate kind of going up.
Hmm.
It feels like a wave.
Mm. Yeah, and just noticing this wave with curiosity, knowing that these sensations cannot hurt you.
Got a deep breath. Kind of
Hmm.
orient my vision is opening up more.
Hmm. Yeah, and by him saying that my vision is opening up when we are in fight or flight, our vision literally becomes like tunnel vision. And so we begin to see less of our peripherals. So this is just showing in real time how his nervous system is re-regulating. Mhm. And you can stay exactly as you are. I'll just invite you now. This might sound like a really weird request. I'm just going to invite you to bring your finger about 3 to 6 inches in front of your face.
Like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. And I want you to just start by looking at your fingertip for about 10 seconds here.
All right.
And then now I want you to look outside your window, looking at the peripheral. And you can keep your finger there. Yep. So just looking through the window, looking through the fingertip. And now looking back at your fingertip, and now switching back to looking at through your fingertip through the window.
Some deep breaths.
Perfect. And just one last time, looking back at your fingertip for about 10 seconds. Perfect. And I'll just invite you to just bring your fingertip down. And then just looking around the room, even just noticing one thing you didn't notice before.
I say I went to the other side of the room, so I noticed that side that I was more focused over here when we were doing it
Mhm.
originally, and then I'm kind of coming over here more and wanting to play, I guess, by swinging my chair a little bit.
Mhm. Perfect. Yeah, now when we think back to being on an interview, thinking of that uncertainty and thinking about, okay, that heat was in my upper body and your chest. What are you noticing in your body now after we did that?
I feel the cool air coming in from the side.
Hmm.
So I don't have.
Beautiful. Yeah. Okay, so you don't have heat anymore. Okay. So as I talk about that uncertainty, how intensely would you rate that heat now on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being the most intense?
Oh, I mean, it's zero. There's nothing there now.
Mm. Okay, perfect. So that shows the power of somatics and somatic therapy. And so, like a really quick explanation. So with the finger, you can do this at any moment if you're listening. If you're really, really anxious, your anxiety is really high, or if you're like a therapist or clinician or coach listening to this, you can utilize that with clients. Like if you're running out of time in a session and the client still might be pretty activated and we want to bring them down into their window of tolerance, that's something that you can utilize. This has been helpful for panic attacks. It is a term called vergence. And so it's incredibly helpful for anxiety and for panic and just re-regulating the system. In practice, I would go back and forth between that activation spot, feeling the heat, feeling that uncertainty, and then also going back and forth to that safe spot. And for Mitch, that was the window. So typically, I would be processing with clients for about 30 to 45 minutes in a brain spotting session. So it would be like, I would encourage them to look at that activation spot where they feel that uncertainty or heat the most, staying with that. And if they need at any point to look out the window, if it feels too much with that heat, then we look at the window or we find that or we look at that safe spot and then we go back and forth listening to their nervous system's rhythm. And so you could see how, Mitch and I did not go into his trauma history, any memories necessarily. It was just being with the sensations. And then that activation went from a 4 to a 0. So that shows physiologically how much the nervous system can shift and change without talking at all.
Hmm. I like that you say that because I feel like a lot of people when they're coming into this work, they're nervous. Like I don't want to talk about the past, and they may have learned through working with different therapists that it doesn't feel good to go over and over and over it.
Exactly. Because when we're talking about our anxiety or we're talking about our trauma, our body can't differentiate the past versus the present. So if you're talking about your anxiety or trauma, it's actually reliving it. And so you're actually re-traumatizing your body by talking about it. And so with brain spotting or somatic therapy, we're actually closing that loop because it's those sensations are happening. That racing heart, that heat in the upper body, we're stopping that loop. And going back to what you mentioned earlier is, when we're talking about building our capacity, and as we're becoming more securely attached or healing, that doesn't mean that we're never activated, triggered, or anxious. It might just be that maybe we're triggered a little bit less, or we're able to go back into our adult body and unblend from a young part much quicker. We're able to come back much quicker. We're able to pause instead of react. We're able to feel a bit less anxious. We're able to see the bigger picture. We're able to, even just be with the sensations and that activation or heat for much longer. And that's showing that, we're not as overwhelmed by our sensations or anxiety.
Yeah, totally. And for me, what I've noticed over the years is that if I'm avoiding something like a sensation or a feeling in my body, and I'm trying to fix it. I'm trying to figure it out. Even all the old ways that I used to associate to my body that felt like crap. Right? That feels really
Mm-hmm.
crap. That created so much of the thing that I was trying to get rid of,
Mm-hmm.
and it's so interesting. It feels almost like a magic trick for those of us that have had our hair on fire for so many years that you're telling me I can be with this sensation for 2 or 3 minutes and then I can come down and out of it and help the sensation that nothing else could. Now,
Mm-hmm.
and it sounds like what you're describing is also, hey, you're not going to have to come in and talk about your past. You're also not going to go into the deep end of this activation, this anxiety that we're calling it right away. And if that's the case, that's showing us how much safety we had, how much capacity we have, and we're going to build capacity with the resource so that eventually, through repetition, through safety, through choice, through allowing and being with, we build up the capacity to see it, to uncouple, unblend, that sensation with something that's a danger, and it almost becomes like wisdom. Like, no, you want this. You want
Mhm.
this feedback from your body because it tells us what is safe and what is not safe. But if we've never learned that, we got to go slow, do little bits at a time. But eventually we can get to that place of safety and we can trust ourselves with and without the resource and with and without whatever environment we're in, really.
Mhm. Absolutely. You described it perfectly. And when we're being with that safe spot, like I call it, like for Mitch's example with the window, we're teaching his body, we're teaching your body that these sensations are safe to be with because trauma is defined as something that's too much, too overwhelming, too fast. So when we're bringing in the safe spot or we're bringing in that resource, this gives us back that agency, that trust that we're not stuck in this feeling. It helps us to build capacity to be with these sensations and emotions. And yeah, exactly. Anything that we're avoiding, it's just showing that our nervous system in the past didn't feel safe with it. And what we resist persists. And so as we continue doing this work, you will start to begin to build your capacity so that you're avoiding certain things less and not to judge those parts of you that are avoiding it because clearly it feels too much for this young part of you. And it was too much for you at that age.
Yeah, and it just seems like you said earlier, something you said that stuck out because I heard this last week from a friend that was talking to me about attachment. They were like, you know, that is everywhere. It's in everything that we do. And you've given us some good examples. You went over avoidant and anxious back in the past, but and early in the conversation. But I'm wondering if someone is hearing this conversation, like, oh man, this sounds like me. What are what are some things that they can look out for? Maybe we've already said it, but what things can they? What guidance would you give to someone that is like thinking maybe I'm anxious, maybe I'm avoidant, and are there other attachment styles, or are that the two main ones?
Yeah, that is a great question. So, starting with different attachment styles, so there's four. So, there's secure attachment, which is what we're all kind of looking toward. Then
Okay.
there's that avoidant attachment, anxious attachment, and then disorganized attachment. So, disorganized attachment is kind of like a mix of anxious and avoidant. So, this can look like close, like longing for closeness, but also it feels unsafe or we want to sabotage or pull away. So, this is a lot of the time where those push pull behaviors can come from. And so, if you had a parent that maybe was an alcoholic or a narcissist, you maybe you were a parentified child, you had to be a therapist for your parent, etc. What you learned is that I am dependent on my caregiver for my survival, but they're also the person that I fear the most because maybe they physically harm me or emotionally harm me or they begin to become violent when they're drunk, etc. It's like then our nervous system couples connection with threat and danger, but also our nervous system is wired for connection, so it also longs for it at the same time. So it begins to create this push-pull dynamic, which can make it create a lot of self-sabotaging behaviors where you can have a safe partner, but what can end up happening is you are fault finding, you will see flaws, you will push away, you will ghost because it feels too dangerous unless you work with those protective parts. Um, yeah, and then that is those are those four attachment styles. And then really what I would start with, going back to kind of what we said at the beginning, is no matter what your attachment style is, we want to build internal safety because when we've been in survival mode and our nervous system is wired for chaos. So then what happens is we go into our dating situations or even in our company or in our jobs and we're recreating those same scenarios in childhood where maybe your boss is completely unpredictable. Maybe your business is entirely unpredictable. Maybe your partner is incredibly unpredictable and they cause a lot of chaos for you. Um, so what we want to do is by us regulating our nervous system, stimulating our vagus nerve, building capacity to be with our sensations and emotions, This helps to stabilize that baseline. So now, because my nervous system is more regulated and I'm finding safety within myself, now I'm looking for safety in the same way. I'm looking for that stability. I'm not comfortable with instability or inconsistency or relations that are not mutual or loving. So, of course, if I'm giving that safety internally, I'm not going to chase that chaos externally. Another thing that we didn't get to mention is something called adult self anchoring. So, we talked a lot about on this podcast about becoming secure within. But when we've never had a parent or parents who were safe, who were emotionally available, we are missing that internal parent, and we start to feel when we are triggered, we start to feel small, we start to feel anxious, we start to feel that we are not capable. So what I have clients do and what I invite clients to do is start to do somatic exercises that and different posture shifts that physiologically change our nervous system state. So even like with Mitch, he was contracting and bringing in, pulling in forward. When we are in shame or when we're in younger parts, our posture can reflect that. So when we're straightening our spine, we naturally will feel more confident, like we can take up space. And I will invite clients, what is a memory that has brought you to a state of feeling proud or capable? This could be something very small, like you doing a really hard workout at the gym that made you feel really proud and capable. Maybe that's you taking care of your children. Maybe that's doing a podcast like this one. Um, maybe that's hitting a certain quota at your sales company, whatever that is that's made you feel proud or capable. And a lot of traumatized people, they might not have ever had a time where they feel proud or capable. So I'll then invite them to either imagine the steadiness from a tree or a mountain. And so by us imagining that, okay, now I'm feeling, okay, what sensations are you noticing in your body when you bring up this calm or proud memory, or when you think about this tree or this mountain? You're feeling the steadiness, you're feeling the capability, you're feeling the groundedness when you imagine this memory or thinking of the tree or mountain. And then it's realizing, hey, I am not separate from this mountain, tree, or memory. I'm feeling it right now in my body. And so, as we're reactivating this memory and these sensations in our body, we are learning and replacing that parent. So now we are becoming that securely attached parent where we're feeling proud and capable. So, bringing that internal safety with safe spotting and orienting, doing vagus toning, doing adult self anchoring, and then somatic therapy, right? So, something new that I've also been learning a new certification is internal family systems, aka parts work. So if you're overthinking, ruminating, fantasy thinking, cognitive dissonance, any type of addiction, phone scrolling, like scrolling on your phone, overworking, overgiving, self-doubt, those are all protector parts. And so when we can learn somatically, what are they protecting you from feeling? What need are they meeting? And then starting to work with that inner child and working with ways that we can meet that need and process that trauma that created that protector part. That's when the protector part will start to loosen. So that's really big. And then going into the brain spotting or somatic therapy to heal the origin of your attachment wounds or chronic anxiety or shut down responses. So that's really how I work with clients and how I would recommend anyone on their path to becoming more securely attached, regardless of what your attachment style is.
I love that, and it makes so much sense that we would want to work on safety and secure attachment, like our attachment wounds early on, and that's going to build safety. It's going to build capacity, and saving some of the deeper work for once that safety is established. Because if I am trying to go into this shock trauma that I have, it's overwhelming
Mm-hmm.
from the past, but I don't feel safe here to be with sensation, when I start going up that ladder of activation that we just saw, it takes a couple of minutes. That's someone who's been in this for a while. If I can't trust that wave of activation, then I'm gonna backlog all of that momentum, the emotions, the sensations, the activation coming and moving. And it sounds like this is such a ground zero, and I feel like it gets missed a lot. We're giving out
Yes.
these exercises and awareness that if we're at level 0, 1, level 3, we're not there yet. But because we love to learn and teach, and we like to go into our intellectual mind, which can be a trauma response as well.
Yes.
That is what I was doing before I had, and that's where I got more and more sensitized, more fixing, more figuring out, sending this hypervigilance is just flooding my system, and saying that the world is dangerous. But I've learned so much. I've read the books, and I know I've got these traumas, but I haven't healed these deeper wounds and seen these survival patterns. And as we start to do that, kind of like we highlighted with relationship, is we start to really recognize our own internal impulse instead of looking for it for the external, like this world or this identity that we've created around our survival responses. So that's a kind of a motherfucker, if you will, when you get into this work to go, man, reality is not what I thought it was. I always say this work is the ultimate red pill. You see yourself, you see family, you see society, and you go, wait a minute. And then when we create safety, we start to make our own choices of what this is what I'm resonating with. And it can blow this whole situation up too. And that's kind of what we want. I mean, it's kind of what we're
Yes.
expecting.
Yes, and that is some hard pills to swallow and witness. When you're like, holy shit, my personality is a collection of trauma responses and
Yes.
protector parts. Like, whoa, that is not me. Like, holy hell, what an identity crisis it will feel like,
Yep.
and how scary and destabilizing that feels. And also, like, going back to what you mentioned, a lot of people are misinformed, not trauma informed or somatically trained. So they don't teach those foundational levels. And a lot of clients will come to me saying, I've done EMDR and I actually felt worse, or I've done brain spotting and I felt worse because the therapist did not teach them how to self-soothe, how to feel safe with sensation, and how to actually feel safe in our body. And so I work with nervous system regulation and somatic tools first to help us even feel safe to go into that. We need to actually feel safe before we can go into those wounds and traumas. We need to be able to self-soothe when we're in the brain spotting or EMDR sessions, or else again, we will be re-traumatized. And something else that I want to mention that's really foundational if you're listening to this, we experienced trauma and CPTSD and an anxious attachment style because we have been wounded or traumatized by our closest caregivers or relationships. So if we're traumatized in relationships, we also heal in relationships as well. And so a lot of people want to skip that step. And even I was listening to a meditation yesterday and I got like slightly angry because they were saying like, even if people leave, I am safe, which in fact, like we want to get to that place. But if you've never experienced external safety, you've never had a safe relationship or friendship or whatever, then we have not cultivated that internally. Like our self-esteem and our sense of safety is determined by our close relationships as a child. And so what we need to start to do is we need to do the internal work to feel internally safe and learn how to self-regulate. And we need those just confirming experiences with other. This can start with a coach, a therapist, a group container, somatic practitioner, or a safe friend, right? Because we need to have that modeled of I can be seen, I can be held, people can come back, people can repair with me, and I'm still okay. We need disconfirming experiences that show us we're not in the past anymore. That's going to ultimately also heal your attachment system. So we can't heal in isolation or in a vacuum. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news. That means that, we have to do some of that work to make ourselves a safe partner. Obviously, there's so many nuances to this with clients of mine who've been stuck in trauma bonds or toxic relationships. I will encourage clients to pause on dating for at least 6 months, maybe longer, if they've been in chronic back-to-back relationships with toxic partners or trauma bonds, because we need to heal those original wounds because our nervous system is raw and we are in a vulnerable state. We don't want to go back into dating yet, but we still want safe other to show our nervous system a new experience. So what are your thoughts on that, Mitch?
uh, well, I love it, and I guess first off the bat is like contrast, right? I think that contrast is so important. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and think about it. Like, if we're talking about contrast, that means I'm feeling. That means I'm feeling my natural impulse, and I'm also
Mm-hmm.
noticing my own patterns that I've built through awareness and education, and I've built capacity to be with. And it's like that. Thank God for that yuck sensation, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want that, and we're
Mm-hmm.
probably coming from a place where I didn't feel anything, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
that can be, we have to titrate the good feelings, just like we have to titrate uh, the like the awareness of what doesn't feel good anymore. I remember
Yes.
working with a therapist and and going, man, I'm crying. I'm describing an experience where I was crying, but I wasn't sad. And it's like, man, could that be joy? And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh wow, I gotta experience that too. And then I
Mm-hmm.
love that you're bringing in healing in relationship, absolutely, and how if we haven't had safety, we haven't had secure attachment, and we see the examples that you've been giving us and thinking, man, this is me. Well, what does that look like when we heal these attachment wounds and we go back into environments? I don't know about environments, but yeah, with our caregivers that we didn't have that secure attachment with, because you mentioned before we were getting on your family and how um, it's really easy, or it's a lot easier than it's been because of the work you've done. What's it look like when that heals?
Yeah, so I'll give like two different examples. So, a few years ago, when I was like really deep into the work, my father is a narcissist. I'm pretty open about that on my podcast, on different podcasts I guest on. And so obviously we've had a strained relationship. And when I was really starting to dive deeper into my healing, we went no contact for about a year and a half. And then my grandfather passed away. And so I, of course, was going to the funeral and I saw my father, and I wasn't actually triggered at all at the time because I was intentionally working on healing those wounds and my trauma. And so, I can also see him with a lot of compassion now, where before that was not even possible. And I just see this man as just a ball of stress, a ball of dysregulation, a ball of nervous system responses that he's just inflamed and dysregulated. And I don't take his words as seriously. And yeah, like yesterday, I was slightly triggered by him. But then now, like, I feel fine about it. And it's just kind of like, all right, like, I might be triggered, but that doesn't mean I will stay triggered for days and days and days or weeks or years, right? As some people can be. As you heal your trauma, that does not mean that you're never going to be triggered, but it will take you less time to go from being in your young triggered part to going back into and feeling into your secure adult body.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, what you're talking about is having flexibility and regulation.
Yes.
Dysregulation is stuck,
Hmm.
and for it sounds like what both of us experience. That's chronic symptoms all the time, right? I don't know how
Hmm.
to be with this. I don't know what I used to say. My hair's on fire, and I don't know what that means. Now I got a
Hmm.
catalog of what that means, right? Like I have a lot of
Hmm.
awareness, and do I still get triggered? Yeah, I got triggered coming on a podcast.
Hmm.
That happens all the time, and as we see in a couple of minutes, of being with myself and orienting. And I love this word, safety spotting.
Mm-hmm.
You can see that come down. And where's that heat now? It's not here. And I also
Mm-hmm.
share, I really appreciate you talking about your family because I have the same exact situation. I
Mm-hmm.
have emotionally immature and narcissistic all in my family, and I've been no contact for a while. And it's
Mm-hmm.
really encouraging to hear um, that being in relationship is possible again, and that we don't have to be as triggered, and we can basically take the things that I've been learning the last couple of years and eventually apply that to my family. I think they say family is the last frontier.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And, everyone is different. And I was sharing with Mitch before we hopped on the podcast, I was a digital nomad for 7 months and traveling, and I visited my family, and took a few weeks to come back to Ohio, and then I'm going to go back to Mexico, yada, yada. Um, but I wasn't really talking to my dad very much, when I was traveling and abroad. And so, it doesn't have to be all or nothing, and everyone's situation is completely different. You can still be no contact with someone, even if you're quote unquote like healing. Like it is okay if you never have contact again, um, with your abusive ex or your parent or parents. Like each situation is completely different, and there's nuance to everything. And what might work for me might not work for you and your specific circumstance or situation.
And there's this the question I had next. I'm kind of going to give a little bit of context. I hear this question with a lot of different things, right? Things that maybe are our crutches, kind of like let's say medication. I've been on medication before. It sounds like you were at one time. And people will say, like, we want to shame and blame the medication that's actually helping us. And what I typically find is that it just kind of falls away. We just get to a place, we notice the contrast. I don't need this thing anymore. I'm gonna see what it's like to not have that, not have that. Maybe there's symptoms at first. Eventually, it's like, oh man, I got enough information here to tell me that I'm good without it. And I'm wondering, how does someone who's no contact know when it's a good time to be back in contact if that's something that they're interested in?
Oh, what a great question. I think there's no black and white answer here. I think that everything is circumstantial. I think if you talk to them and they don't like fully activate you, or you can be in the same room with them, and maybe it doesn't mean living with them again or having the same type of relationship that you had with them at one point. Maybe you go from being no contact, and then maybe you talk to them for like 30 minutes once a week or once a month, and that's what your system can tolerate.
You're
I would
titrating it.
say, yes, I would say if you feel indifferent towards them, if there's no emotional charge, then that could be a time where you could explore um, reversing no contact.
Mhm.
But like for exes or like certain situations, I think sometimes it's better to keep that closed. And
Yeah.
this is like I'm also very privileged in this scenario where I've not had children with any of my exes. So sometimes no contact is not plausible or possible for parents, for example.
Totally.
But, like for me, I don't find that to be helpful to be in contact with any of my exes. I don't really believe that you can really be friends with an ex. You know, just certain things. I mean, maybe you can, but it makes things complicated. I'm going on a different rant. But yeah, it's a lot of nuance here with re-entering no contact. I just would need to know also a little bit more about the person, their situation, what their relationship with this person is like. Um, so yeah.
I just, as you describing that, I agree with you. I love the titrating part, and I think in this work, what I have learned is that my previous, what I would call that, like weakness, my sensitivity is my strength now, and I'm starting to see
Mm-hmm.
that. very clearly in the work that I do. And what I know about me, and this is me, and of course everybody's different in their circumstances and nuance, and like you mentioned. But what I know is my body will let me know.
Hmm.
And when I'm talking about my family or having a conversation with them, that's what we have on board. Eventually, is we have this. Uh, it does feel like magic trick sometimes now that just it's letting us know, and that
Hmm.
feeling is everything. If I can sit with that, I can process that. That's going to let me know more than me trying to get some type of and disconnecting from my body to go into my head to create some it's got to be now or putting pressure on myself.
Hmm.
It's got to be like Val was saying on the podcast. That's going right back into our pattern. We become the medicine, and the healing is ours when we can listen to that and respond from that instead of looking for the answers out here.
Absolutely. You nailed it on the head 100%.
Awesome. Well, Val, this has been a great catch up conversation. I'm
Yes.
sure we could keep going, but
Yeah.
before we wrap, I want to give you an opportunity to promote yourself. I imagine people are listening to this, they're like, "Man, I want to check out safety spotting. I'm interested in this somatic therapy, and man, I think I have these different attachments. I want to learn more about that." If somebody wants to work with you, where do they find you, and what would that look like?
Yeah. Thank you, Mitch. A great place to start where I've included basically everything that we talked about of, like adult self-anchoring, getting into our adult body, somatic therapy, and a tool that I use for building that safety in our body is EFT tapping. So I have a free masterclass all about breaking your attraction to emotionally unavailable partners. There is adult self anchoring in there. There is brain spotting to break the pull and to break that pull toward these emotionally unavailable partners that it bypasses this part of you that quote unquote knows better, but is going back to these types of relationships. And then we also work on EFC tapping to heal and make the fear of abandonment smaller. And so we can reparent this young part of us. So it really encompasses everything. So that's a great place to start. And then also my podcast, I really recommend. It's called the Anxiety Recovery Podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the places you get your podcasts. And then also like my Instagram, it's Heal with Val, HEAL with VAL. And I'm sure Mitch will put these in the show notes. I'll make sure to send him all the links. And yeah.
I love that. It sounds very thorough. I have to tell a little story on tapping because
Mm-hmm.
I another blast from the past. My first uh, experience with someone in the mind body space was a yoga teacher who was doing
Mm-hmm.
tapping, and I remember thinking, number one, what is this tapping stuff? Give me a Xanax, like what, like
Yeah. Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
and I want to but because I said that, I feel like the need to promote it as well because I think it is powerful. It ultimately taught me how to slow down and tap these different points of my body when my body felt on fire and I had no reference point whatsoever what was going on. In a couple of sessions, I was able to slow that down and be like, "Oh, this is grief. This is anger. This is." That's how I learned to name emotions. Was starting with
Mm-hmm.
that, and it's one of those modalities that if not used correctly, done without awareness, or we can just poo-poo it really quick. And I just want to say, some of these tools, when used intentionally for the purpose that you're using them for, are fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Great place for people.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Especially if you're like high on activation. Like if you're at a, 7 out of 10 in anxiety, or like you feel like your body is on fire, like I think EFT tapping can kind of bring down that volume and help you to build capacity to be with those sensations. And it's like anxiety is this stuck energy and emotion that like wants to move. So by tapping, we're really like moving that stuck, stagnant energy. So I love EFT tapping. I think it's fantastic and fabulous. I also have a free resource. I don't want to like overwhelm everyone. It's also in the masterclass. But if you just want the EFT, I have a specific EFT tapping for the fear of abandonment and reparenting your inner child. So that's a fantastic resource as well.
Beautiful. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing all that. We'll definitely be sure to put that in all the show notes. Val, thank you so much for coming on. It's been great catching up with you. Love what you're up
Yeah,
to and teaching us all that. Spend a little time helping me with my activation today. That was nice. And
yeah.
yeah, thanks to everybody that's been following along. This is the Rooted Conversations podcast. If you like the conversation, share it with someone. Give us a like, give us a comment, leave us a question below. We love those. And until next time.